Hi everyone, a quick progress report, and also I'm after some advice because I'm a little bit stuck at the moment. The main thing is that I want to be able to do, because I'm on my own, I want to be able to drop the engine in a controlled way without having to rely on any strength. And so you'll recall I bought this little scissor lift to chop the engine up. But I was also conscious that the engine wouldn't necessarily be stable on it. And so I've been spending my time making this support stand. All it is some 18mm chipboard, and I cut some various pieces of wood to chock underneath the engine to support it. And then once I was happy that the engine was more or less supported in all positions, I put a whole load of filler, epoxy filler, on the wood, and then raised the stand up and pushed it against the underside of the engine to squish the filler in place, so that the actual surface that the engine is sitting on is very contoured, and it will stop the engine from moving as I lower it, and it should secure it in place. I'll just show you what I mean. So that's the engine support off the lift, and you can see that all this filler has been nicely squidged down, and it totally mates with the underside of the engine. You have to be careful if you do this, because if you're not careful, you'll bond this onto the bottom of the engine. So the way to avoid that is to clean the undersurface of the engine really well, and then heavily wax it with mold release wax. Essentially, it's just a very, very heavy Canuba wax. You don't then buff it off, you just leave it as a waxy surface. Even so, this did stick to it. I had to smash it off with a mallet, but it fits like a glove, and it locks the engine backwards and forwards and side to side. So it should be completely stable when I lower it. And then this is the engine resting on the support, with the support jacked up underneath, and you can see how everything fits nicely and the engine is supported. The other thing I was mindful of is, if you look in there, there's a couple of standoffs which are cast onto the bottom of the sump, and I was very conscious, if I manhandled the engine and tried to lower it myself, if I dropped it on anything or put it down hard, those castings, standoffs, would almost certainly get broken off. But as it is, they're completely protected and they're clear of the support stand. Now, my intention was to follow the manual and simply remove the mounting bolts that go through the crankcase, both left and right, remove the mounting bolts to the cylinder head, left and right, and then, according to the manual, just lower the engine. But unfortunately, the rear of the engine overhangs some of the frame, so the upper crankcase at the rear overhangs the swinging arm spindle, and the lower crankcase is actually above and behind the centre stand mount, and also another spindle that runs across the frame. So the only way to clear that is to move the whole engine forward, and then if you do, you've got very little clearance here, and you wouldn't be able to do it. So the only way you can bring this bit forwards and not clash here is to angle the engine up so that it goes upwards. The other possibility is, because these front engine mounts, this one here is on the right hand side of the bracket, the one on the other side is on the left hand side of the bracket, so there is some potential for maybe swiveling the engine to the left, maybe as you raise it slightly, before you then draw the whole thing forwards and then lower it. The problem with that, though, is I'm on my own, and this thing's got to weigh something from 70 to 100 kilos, and so I'm a little bit concerned that I won't be able to do it. So plan B was to make the support and then remove the cylinder head in situ. And once that's removed, that can actually be fairly easily manipulated out of here. I've checked the clearance. Once that's removed, then in actual fact, these bolts can just be undone. The whole thing can be slid forward, because there's nothing going to clash here, and then just lowered. And the support stand will keep it stable. The problem is, the manual says that you can't take the cylinder off in situ, because the rubbing strips, the tensioner blades, get in the way. So I thought, okay, no problem. I've got half of this dismantled anyway. I'll just remove the tensioner blades. And that's what I need a little bit of advice on. The rear tensioner blade, you just undo the spindle bolt here, and the blade just draws out. This one, I've removed the pivot bolt, but I can't get it out. It's kind of stuck. And if I look up there, it almost looks as though the rubbing strip follows that sort of contour. And then as it goes up, there's like I think it got like a hooked piece, and it maybe grips onto something, I don't know, but it kind of stuck, and I'm a little bit wary about forcing it and how to do it. So has anyone got any advice about how to remove this forward rubbing strip? Anyone who's done it, who can tell me what to do?